African champions Nigeria could not make it to the last 16 of the FIFA Women's World Cup in Canada. But for Cameroon, who are making their debut, well, they were able to secure a 2-1 victory over Switzerland. That was all they needed, and of course, they got it. They are in the last 16. Remember, they're actually the runner-up at the African Women's Championship, and it's their first time at the tournament. They were able to actually do African proud. With Cote d'Ivoire out, Nigeria out, Cameroon is the only team that is left in Canada. Now, for the Super Falcons, could the story have been different if Sarah Nnadi wasn't sent off? And of course, if Francesca Odega had played full game, because after a substitution, well, the Super Falcons were a bit laid back. Hello and welcome. I'm Cecilia Morgbeni, watching sport this morning. And of course, we're starting with what happened in Canada early hours of this morning. Abby Wambach, well, she scored her 14th goal at the FIFA Women's World Cup, and that single goal was enough to actually send the Super Falcons home. Also in the program, Sergio Aguero, where it was just a spectacular header, and that header will give the Argentines what they needed, their first victory in the tournament. Remember, the first one was a draw, and this one, they just did not lag behind. Aguero was the man who ensured that they got all 3 points there. Also on the program, the Golden Team are the champions of the NBA. Well, and of course, Andre Iguodala and also Steph Curry, both of them combined to score 50 points and wrap up the series in Game 6, 4-2. That's how it ended for, well, Golden State Warriors to win their first championship title in 40 years. Now for Steph Curry, he's actually looking for 1,800 amazing ways to explain how the feeling is. Remember, for them, they actually had 83 wins in a single season. That's the third team to have done that. The third time it's been done in the NBA history. And the first team to have done that was actually, well, Chicago Bulls. And their coach, Steve Kerr, was also in that team when he did it twice. But for Golden State Warriors, you would say it's a golden moment for them. Let's listen to the NBA MVP.
We'll see. We found a recipe for success, and that's the most important thing for us. Now that we have this, under our belt, I think we can actually appreciate what we were able to do this year from start to finish. It's hard in the moment to really understand what 67 wins means in the grand scheme of the history of the NBA, how hard that is, but then also to cap that off with a championship playoff run. So we'll appreciate, I think, that whole journey a lot more now, be able to reflect, and I think we definitely are a great team, and a team that should go down in history as one of the best teams from top to bottom.
Well, obviously the best team, and when you get to cap that up with a championship ring, of course, it's obviously the best thing. But for LeBron James, we're expecting, well, maybe the game will get to Game 7, but for him, it just didn't get that. After all the points, he was trying to carry his team, but that just wasn't enough for the Cleveland to win their first ever NBA title. And of course, it was Golden State Warriors, the best team this season, that won that one. Now, well, let's come back home a little bit for the Super Falcons. Well, what do you guys really think about Super Falcons' performance last night? I mean, it wasn't really a poor performance for Precious Daily. She was there. She saved 2 spectacular goals that were supposed to go in, but that just wasn't enough. And of course, we also got the red card in that same game for the Super Falcons. They will be coming home just winning 1 game. What do you guys think about? Talk to us on Twitter, of course, on Facebook. What do you feel about Super Falcons' performance? Some people are already tweeting and saying that, well, they should get a foreign coach for the girls simply because you have a bundle of talent there. So that talent, is it really alone for the girls, or do you really actually need a foreign coach to coach these girls to victory, or rather is it preparations for games? Because remember, we talked about this on this show that, well, when you really don't prepare well, no matter what you would do, the better team will always get to win. And the Americans, if you watched them last night, they were well organized. After that goal, all they needed to do was just to defend and play with the ball, and the crowd actually enjoyed it. At the end of the day, Super Falcons just couldn't get that win they so much desired, because the other side, the other game, was 1-1 draw, which we were all praying for. After the draw, if the Super Falcons had been able to at least win the game, well, it would have been home and dry. At the end of the day, they just couldn't do that, and of course, they will be coming back home. You would say not again. But as African champions, I believe they were not really disgraced at the tournament. I mean, the first game was a draw. The second one just 2 goals to nothing. And the last one, by a lone goal. Remember in 2007, right? They faced the Americans. Of course, it was just by a lone goal. Hopefully next time when the Super Falcons get to the World Cup, if they're facing the Americans again, they should know how to beat them this time around. Taya Salam joins me now. Taya, good morning.
Cecilia, I don't know if it's going to be right for me to say good morning because obviously it's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame about the Falcons, really. And I was going to say, bringing a foreign coach and you have that same kind of preparations they had going into this tournament, and you're going to get the same results.
Yes, of course.
So it's not about the coach and Cecilia. No, so that's not the main issue. We know the main issue, and the authorities know the main problem as well. So the girls were not ready.
Yeah, they were really not ready. They were really not prepared. And when you face a stronger and a better team, it gets to show. That was what happened. The U.S. had the urge. They had everything working well for them, so well. And the substitution that the coach made, she knew her team so well that she could easily say, okay, if I bring in a particular player, when I replace him with another one, then another player will definitely come up and get the better of the team. But for the Super Falcons, the changes that were actually made, I wasn't really happy about it because I felt some players should have stayed on the pitch. Now, that's the result of our last night, of course, early hours of this morning. Group C, you have Ecuador and Japan. Well, Ecuador, I will say, they didn't win a game, but, well, losing to defending champions by a lone goal, I think they really put up a performance there. And, of course, for Cameroon, they came from 2 goals down to win, from a goal down to win that 1-2. And of course they needed a victory and they won it. So Cameroon, they are through to the last 16. Group D, Nigeria, US, of course, you had the story, and Australia and Sweden, it was a 1-1 draw. How I wish we had just won that game.
Yeah,
they've been a different story.
Yeah, Cecilia, it was always going to be a very, very difficult proposition for Nigeria, beating the United States in that particular game. So I'm not surprised at all, but we have to say the girls really gave it their all. It was a very impressive performance by them. In the first half, I thought the first half was even. It was very even for me. Then the second half, the Americans, and with all the experience, really came to the party and just took the game. And once we got that red card, in the second half, our little chances are very, very, slim chances of actually coming back into the game, just totally diminished and vanished. So, in all, for me, I thought the girls, they gave their all. But you know what to say about not being able to give what you don't have.
Yes.
Yeah, the girls just didn't have it because they were not ready enough.
Yeah, they were not ready enough. I think that's just the summary of the Super Falcons story. For those who are calling for the head of the coach, and of course for some of the players to be dropped, well, I think if you really watch these girls...
What players? What players?
Some of I mean, this morning I was trying to go through a Twitter handle and people like Precious Dede shouldn't come back to the team.
Okay, well.
She should try to retire now and all that. People talking about Pepecha Nkwacha and all that.
Okay.
She didn't really play yesterday's game. She was on the bench.
Yes.
I was thinking and hoping that the coach would bring her in, of course, just to equal
that record.
Yeah,
right.
that record and all that. If that's the only thing we're able to achieve at that tournament, but he just didn't do that. And people are also talking about Courtney Dike, the fact that, hey, why would you remove Courtney Dike and bring in Francisca Vega? But there was actually one free kick that she played. I mean, it was just the bar. That was really spectacular. It was really obvious that these girls, they've got the talent, they've got all it takes. I mean, they play together more and they get to play more friendlies and get to know their opponent very well. Because what I wasn't really happy about was the fact that the news we heard when the coach said you don't really need to watch your opponent and all that. I mean, the clip of your opponents, which I don't really agree with for me. I think you really need to know your opponent, watch them and get to know their weak points and all that. That will also help you to see how you can play them. And another thing is...
Did you really say that?
That's what I read on Twitter. That's what I'm saying. Like, if that's not true, precisely, because I hope that's not correct. Exactly, because if a coach should say that, I mean, you don't need to watch your opponents for you to really know how they... to win the game.
We're talking football in 2015 now where every little detail matters, and I don't expect any coach to come out and say watching your opponents it's not the right way to go. So like I said, I hope that's not the case. And talking about Nkwacha, she didn't come on yesterday, unfortunately, right? And a lot of people are saying she's old. Obviously, yeah, she's gotten on in age now. You can understand that. But then Abby Wambach got to go for the United States of America. That was a 183rd goal
And how old is she?
Oh, come on,
That-
she's old as well.
36,
Yeah,
37?
what I'm trying to say
Yes.
is, what I'm trying to say is
It's not the age.
Yeah, it's not the age that matters.
Just do the right
Sometime.
thing.
Exactly, and you can't really. Nobody's gonna blame Nkwacha for Nigeria's dismal performance at the World Cup. She did her best, you know. But then there's a major problem that we need to tackle. That is actually learning and doing the right thing before a major championship. Going into the World Cup, I told you I was going to sit back and enjoy the individual performances of the ladies
plays,
because I know they've got talent.
Which I did. I
Which we
enjoyed-
did. Yeah, I wasn't expecting any kind of miracle from the Falcons at all. So I'm not disappointed. Like I just said earlier, I don't know if I can say it's a good morning because when you wake up, you stay late to watch that kind of game and it ends up in a defeat. I don't know if you can call that a good morning.
Okay, the
I
one is
don't
doing
think
not
so.
so cool. But at least I was happy because they played well. Because when people started talking about Falcons, how far would they go? The Americans take them to cleaners and all that. It was just a lone goal victory,
Yes.
and we played with 10 men, and we didn't concede after that first goal. So that was really enough for me. Okay, that's coming from Edwin Ocon. Says it was a great experience for us here in Canada. We weren't focused enough in a few situations today. Wasn't surprised to see USA make substitutions that were more defensive after sending off, as they knew they were playing a good team. Yeah, the Super Falcons were really good. You always have a 50-50 chance in every game. Today, USA made the most of one of their chances, and we didn't, even though we had several. Coming from Edwin Ocon.
Yeah, it's a shame really. And if you go back and have a look at the goal again, from a set piece.
It was spectacular. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, well,
it was against as well. You know, she like
But it
she was
was a good goal.
But she was like
was a
using
good
almost all
volley,
her
yeah.
body, like everything she had, you know, just put it on and the goal just went in.
Yeah, so it's a shame for the Falcons. They need. Yeah, I talked about defending set pieces again. Those are the kind of things you perfect, you know, in training and
yes,
in games.
in games.
You know, in
And if you
proper
don't get better games
friendlies,
to prepare for that, there's no way
you
you
will
can.
be found out when push becomes short.
So how come all the goals we
what really
conceded were
happened.
just from that set pieces?
Incredible.
Except the one,
Incredible.
the Australian lady that she just took all the defenders, 4 or 5 defenders at once, and she gets to score more like you can compare with the one Aziza did against Sweden. I think that was the only goal that was different. The others came from set pieces, and of course the players just couldn't put themselves together. Rather, the coach didn't know what to do in that particular department. Well, hopefully the Super Falcons will obviously come home, prepare for. Okay, the Olympics is next year,
Olympics,
so
yeah.
that's the next
And
one.
that's- Yeah, I was going to say that's another major
That's another
competition.
major,
That's another
yes.
competition where it's really going to be very intense. It's going to be
very
fierce,
tough.
and you have
First,
to be
let
ready.
them qualify. They've qualified for the All-African Games because usually when they get to play in that one, they get to win. But the Olympics is actually the bigger one because all the team who are actually here, most of them will also be there. And for the Super Falcons, preparations is obviously the key. Not playing boys, not playing club sides and all that, not even playing African team. You can go ahead and play all the bigger teams, and of course, hopefully you get whatever group you're in. Because you talked about the fact, we talked about Cameroon.
Yes.
You talked about the fact that they had a favorable group.
Yes.
Fine, they had Switzerland, they had Ecuador, they had Japan, and they were able to make use of that. That's why making their debut and they qualify. So if you don't have a favorable team and you prepare so well, sometimes you would just be lucky and you get out of that group. Now, quickly, we just talked about under 20, the Nigerians, you know, the Flying Eagles are out, but you still have 2 African teams. Where Senegal, of course, were taught a football lesson earlier as of this morning, 5-0. Well, the Brazilians were really not, did not just give them a shot, and that's one. And the second game between Mali and Serbia is ongoing. First half, it was 1 or draw on both sides. Brazil, Senegal, wow, not a good one. The Senegalese got red, but that was after they had conceded 4 goals already. Serbia and Mali is still on. Mali, would they make it through?
Yeah, to Brazil first, the Brazilians are looking really good. And remember, they've won it 5 times already. I think they will make it a 6th time. But it's going to depend
Because
on...
you're looking at the Serbia and
Yeah,
Mali,
I'm looking
they're
at
really
Serbia and
strong
Mali.
side.
Yeah, they're good
Serbia
sides.
was surprised that they even made it this far.
Yes, don't get me wrong. Serbia is a decent side, and same goes for Mali. Like we've seen them in this competition, and so far we saw they took out Germany. Yeah, so I'm not going to rule them out. I'm not like underestimating what it can do.
I'm
But in
just going
terms
to
of
the
weighing the
Brazilians
2
at first.
sides, you know, I think you have to go with Brazil to make it a 6th title at this level of football. But then anything can happen, you know.
And it can happen. We'll see what's going to happen. And that one is a first start between Mali and Serbia. And of course, the game is still on. Okay, now talking about the Copa America, it's been wonderful for most of the teams there. For Argentina, well, they were able to get their first victory in the tournament. Let's enjoy the highlights.